At just 21, he was the sole provider for his family, and his simple vegetable cart held a secret that would change his life forever. In the quiet village of Green Valley lived a young man named Paul. His life was not like that of other young men his age. When he was only a child of 5, a great tragedy struck, taking both his parents from this world. Since that day, the weight of his family fell squarely upon his young shoulders. He had an older sister, whose own dreams of marriage were delayed, and a younger brother who relied on him for everything, including his daily journey to school. For Paul, there was no time for leisure or complaint. His world began each morning in the deep, silent dark, long before the first rays of sun touched the rooftops of Green Valley. His destination was the wholesale market, where he would select only the finest, crispest, most vibrant produce. He understood that the people of his village valued quality and health above all, and he was determined to provide nothing less. Paul's business followed a tireless rhythm. From 9 in the morning until the afternoon sun began to dip, he would push his laden handcart through every lane and byway of the village. His familiar call, "Fresh greens here. The best vegetables for your table," became a trusted part of the daily soundtrack. People knew his voice and, more importantly, they knew his unwavering standard. When evening shadows grew long, from 7 until 11 at night, he would set up his small stall in the local square near his home. Workers returning after a long day found solace in his friendly smile and the guaranteed freshness of his wares. It was no surprise that, despite other sellers in the square, Paul's stall was always the busiest. His prices were a touch higher, yet no one minded, for the value was clear in every leaf and root. This success, born of pure diligence and integrity, did not sit well with everyone. 2 other vendors, a man named Mr. Smith and a woman named Mrs. Brown, watched from their quieter stalls with growing resentment. They muttered to each other, their voices low and bitter. "Why does everyone go to him?" Mr. Smith would grumble, slicing the air with a dismissive hand. "We charge less, but they walk right past us." Mrs. Brown would nod, her lips pressed into a thin line. "It's unjust. We work just as hard. He must be using some trick." Their envy festered in the dark corners of their thoughts, slowly curdling into something dangerous. They began to follow Paul, observing his every move, searching for a weakness or a secret they could exploit. They saw his genuine kindness, how he remembered customers' names and asked about their families, but they mistook this sincerity for a mere tactic they could not replicate. During his rounds, Paul began to notice a frail, elderly woman. She would approach his cart each evening, her eyes lingering on the bright tomatoes and verdant spinach, her fingers gently brushing the produce, but she never made a purchase. She lived alone in a tiny, ivy-covered cottage on the edge of the village. One night, as Paul was closing his stall under a canopy of stars, he saw her lingering again. His heart moved with compassion. "Madam," he said softly, walking over to her, "I see you here each night admiring the vegetables. Please, tell me, is there something I can help you with?" The old woman's eyes, deep and sad, met his. "Oh, young man," she whispered, her voice like rustling leaves, "your goods are the finest for miles. But I am alone in this world. I have no one. I survive on the little I can gather, and I cannot afford such beautiful food." Paul did not hesitate. "That ends tonight," he said firmly. "Please, come to my stall just before I close. I will give you whatever remains. It would be my honor to help." At first, she refused, her pride a fragile shield. But Paul's gentle insistence broke through her resistance. From that evening on, she became his last and most cherished customer, receiving a bag filled with care, always accompanied by his warm, respectful smile. Mr. Smith and Mrs. Brown witnessed this nightly act of charity. Instead of seeing its beauty, their jealousy twisted it into further offense. "See," Smith hissed to Brown, "he gives away what we try to sell. He makes us look like greedy monsters." Their plan, born of spite, began to take a terrible shape. They decided Paul had to be driven out. One foggy evening, as Paul took a shortcut down a deserted path leading home, the 2 jealous sellers stepped from the shadows, blocking his way. Their faces were hard and unkind in the dim light. "Think you're the king of the market, boy?" Mr. Smith snarled, stepping far too close. Mrs. Brown circled to his other side. Giving handouts to beggars, making honest folk like us look bad. It's time you learned your place. Paul's heart hammered against his ribs. He was cornered, and the empty road offered no hope. "I want you to leave this village," Smith demanded, his voice low and threatening. "We don't need your kind of goodness here." Just as Paul felt a surge of pure fear, a voice, clear and sharp as a bell, cut through the gloom. "Help! Someone, help this boy!" It was the old woman. She had, as always, been nearby, waiting to thank Paul quietly. Seeing the confrontation, she cried out with all her strength, her frail body trembling with urgency. The sudden sound shattered the bully's courage. Mr. Smith and Mrs. Brown, startled and exposed, looked at each other in panic. Without another word, they turned and fled into the enveloping mist, disappearing like the cowards they were. Paul slumped against his cart, breaths coming in gasps. The old woman hurried to him, her hands fluttering with concern. "My dear boy, are you hurt?" she asked, her eyes searching his face. "You saved me," Paul managed to say, emotion thick in his throat. "You have no idea what you just did." She placed a gentle hand on his arm. "You have shown me kindness for weeks. Did you think I would not return it?" As they walked slowly back towards the warm light of Paul's home, a new resolve solidified in him. He looked at the kind woman beside him, who had faced down danger for his sake, and he knew he could not let her return to a life of lonely solitude. When they reached his doorstep, he stopped. "Madam," he began, his voice steady and sure, "you have no family, and I have no mother. My sister and brother, they have only me. But tonight, you became more than a neighbor. You became our guardian. Please, will you do us the great honor of coming to live with us? This can be your home now." The old woman's eyes filled with tears that caught the lamplight. 4 years, her heart had been a closed room. Now, Paul's words blew the door wide open. The loneliness that had been her constant companion began to retreat. After a moment of stunned silence, a true, radiant smile broke across her face. "If you are certain," she said, her voice choked with happy tears, "I would be so grateful." And so, the young vegetable seller who had lost his parents found a grandmother, and the lonely old woman found a family. His cart had always carried sustenance for the body, but that night it had finally brought a greater nourishment to their souls. It proved that true wealth is not counted in coins, but in the love we choose to give and the family we choose to make. If this story touched your heart, please support our channel by giving this video a like. For more tales of hope and kindness, remember to subscribe to the Calm Tales.